Welcome back. In this session, we shall discuss law of Laplace. Right. This law defines the relationship between tension T present in the wall of a hollow viscous, the transmural pressure P which acts on the surface of the hollow viscous, and its radius R. Right. So now this transmural pressure, this can either be distending pressure, it can act from inside to outside, or it could either be collapsing pressure if it acts from outside to inside, right? So this law states that the tension T is equal to product of transmural pressure P into its radius divided by the wall thickness, right? In thin walled hollow viscous, this wall thickness is very negligible, right? Negligible. So therefore you can neglect it out, so T becomes P into R. You can rewrite this as P is equal to T by R, right? It has been found out that in a thin walled viscous, the transmural pressure is equal to the tension present in the wall of the hollow viscous divided by its two principal radii, okay, R1 and R2, right? So P is equal to 2T 1 by R1 plus 1 by R2. So now in a sphere, what happens? Both R1 and R2 are equal. Let us say it is R. So P becomes 2T 1 by R plus 1 by R, which becomes 2T by R, right? So this is the equation for a sphere. While in the case of a cylinder, right? In the case of a cylinder, one of the radii is infinity, right? So there T becomes R1 plus, so one of the radii is infinity, so anything by 0 is infinity. Let us say 1 by 0, right? So 1 by 0, so this becomes T by R1 plus 0 goes up, it becomes 0. So the equation becomes P is equal to T by R for a cylinder, right? At all times, the transmural pressure P should be balanced by the tension T present in the wall of a hollow viscous. If either one of these two is higher or lower, depending upon the situation, it may lead to distension, excessive distension, and rupture, and eventual rupture of the hollow viscous, or it might lead to collapse of the hollow viscous, right? So it is imperative that P is always balanced by T, right? So let us see the application of law of Laplace in a spherical structure such as urinary bladder, okay, urinary bladder or stomach, right? So what happens in urinary bladder? So for a sphere, the equation is P is equal to 2T by R, right? So in an urinary bladder, as there is filling up of urinary bladder with urine, what happens? There is stretching of the walls of the urinary bladder. This stretching of the walls of urinary bladder leads to entry of calcium ions into smooth muscle cells, okay? So this will lead to contraction of smooth muscle, and eventually the tension present in the wall of the urinary bladder would increase, right? So now as the filling happens, the tension T within the wall of the urinary bladder increases. So in order to balance P with T, what happens? The radius R has also increased. Okay, it has also increased to balance T and P. So as the filling up happens, what happens? The urinary bladder dilates and the radius also increases. Okay, so by this process, by increase in the radius, the increase in the tension in the wall of the urinary bladder, okay, is balanced by the transmural pressure present in the urinary bladder, right? Let us see the application in alveoli. Okay, alveoli is also a spherical structure. So the equation is P is equal to 2T by R, right? So now during expiration, what happens? In alveoli, the radius in the alveolus decreases. There is decrease in the radius. So since this radius is decreased, right, if we have to balance T and P, what needs to happen? The tension present in the alveolus, it should also decrease, right? So this tension is also decreased by surface tension reducing agent, surfactant, right? So at the same time, the radius is decreased during expiration, the surfactant present in the alveolus lining the walls of the alveolus decreases the surface tension. As a result, this P and T are balanced with each other. So that is why there is no collapse of alveolus. Suppose if there is no surfactant, okay, surfactant is absent, then what would happen? This tension T would not be decreased. Okay, so as a result, what would happen? There would be collapse of the alveolus. Okay, a dilated heart, it has to do more work, okay, compared to a normal sized heart. Okay, at the same time, it consumes more oxygen. Okay, more oxygen is consumed by the dilated heart to prevent it from being ruptured. How so? So this is also a condition where it's a sphere. So P is equal to 2T by R. So in a dilated heart, what happens? There is increase in R, right? So if R is increased, what needs to happen? The tension present in the walls of the heart, this should also increase to balance the descending pressure P, right? So how would this be increased? By increasing the force of contraction. Okay, so by utilizing more amount of oxygen, the cardiac muscle increases the force of contraction. As the force of contraction increases, T also increases. Okay, so by doing so, heart is capable of maintaining a balance between the descending pressure and the tension present in the wall. If the tension is not increased, if it is not increased, then what would happen? This descending pressure would overcome the T, would overcome P, and it would lead to rupture of dilated heart, right? Thin walled blood vessels are cylindrical, right? Cylindrical, right? So for this, the law of Laplace, we get the equation P is equal to T by R, right? Normally, blood vessels which have less diameter, okay, are more resistant to rupture compared to a blood vessel with a large diameter. Why so? Now in small blood vessels, okay, this radius is very small, right? So as the radius is very minimal within the small blood vessels, the tension that needs to develop within the walls of the small blood vessels, they also need to be only minimal. Okay, minimal amount of tension is enough to balance the descending pressure, right? Minimum amount of T is enough to balance T. So these vessels are more resistant to rupture because their radius is very minimal.